one right here in the middle. And I've tried to highlight that. Again, it's me messing with the screen here. It is real hard to see your company. Many great construction companies. I was with one this week, and I'll tell you, I felt like they had more family members in the company than they had employees. I mean, it was a wonderful, very successful business. Yet it's very tough for them to enforce standards when everybody's a brother or son or wife or daughter, and so it's really tough sometimes for you to see yourselves. Often after becoming emotionally involved in your own business, like I'm emotionally involved with my children, it's hard to see them and how crazy they can act when we're in public. And other folks probably see my kids and think they're nuts, but yet I think they're pretty normal and I love them. And so I think in many ways when I'm working with construction companies and folks in the industry, I think a lot of times it's the same way. You have run that company for 30 years and you've done a phenomenal job, but yet it's hard for you to see some of the problems that can be adjusted to improve your performance. And so what I want to make sure we hit, if you continue to do what you're doing and expect different results, you'll be frustrated. And that's very much the case for a lot of our companies. And so look at big picture. This chart comes right out of Calculated Risk. It's a wonderful blog. There's a smart mathematician guy that just takes a lot of data and charts it, and he sends it out once a week. So it's real neat. He updates this chart. The name of this chart is the most horrible unemployment report ever. And every week or every month he'll update this, and it'll be like the most horrible unemployment. And so it's kind of funny. What I call this a pothole chart. Everything is zero, is normalized along this 0 or x-axis. And what he did was he just plotted the depth and the length of recessions over time. And so all he's really doing is saying that the 1980 recession was a pretty shallow pothole. You can see I just drew a V on the top of the screen on the far left. That's that yellow line. It was a pretty shallow pothole. If you want to look at the black line, it was indeed the 1990 recession. And you can see how that was a little longer. It was almost parabolic, or it was a little more round. It wasn't as severe, but it took longer. And so what you're seeing is, as you can guess, the current recession we're in right now is this red line down at the bottom. That's the recession we're in today. The severity of that is pretty incredible. The severity of the gap that we're talking about and the length of time far surpasses all of the other recessions. And so it's pretty incredible to understand that all of your businesses are operating in that environment. And that this is probably not the reality, being this is most likely not going to go away overnight. This is going to remain with us. It's going to take some time for us to eat through or wear through the recession that we're in. We don't see this. I would love to see it skyrocket back to that 0%, but it's not. And it's really percent losses relative to peak employment. So as we entered the 1980 recession, employment was at the 0 line. We entered it, and then it returned after the recession to where it was beforehand. It normalized again. I lost one of my little, let's see if I can get it back. Some of you may be very aware of what's called the Architectural Billings Index. And again, this guy graphs it once a month. It's pretty neat. This is the number the Association of Architects releases, the AIA releases. 50, the score of 50, I put an arrow there, anything along this 50 line means more of the same. And so what they're saying is if the score is 50, then the market's not decreasing or improving. If it's above 50, the market is getting better. There's more work for architects and designers. And of course, if it's below 50, and you see that back here in January 2009, if it's this slow, there's very, very little work, and it looks like it's going to be rough. Now you ask yourself, why is this important? Because I don't think there's any architects on the call. They're good folks, but I don't think they're not smart enough like you all are to get online and jump on board here. Here's what this is telling you. If they're designing stuff 9 to 12 months later, depending on which division you're in, 9 to 12 months later is when we're affected by it. And so we had a lot of folks that were still hiring, and they thought the market was great around January 2008, because maybe it was in their market, but things were pretty severe, and about a year later, they certainly felt it. You ask, where are we now? Well, we're sitting right here. Last week, the number released was 48. So it was just below continued sustained. It was slightly weak and slightly less work than normal. We have bounced back and forth between this 45 and 55 for probably 2 years. We have bounced back and forth between those two lines for a little while. And again, what that tells me is we're going to continue to see a not great market and a not horrible market. We're going to continue to see the market that we're in today. All right, I erased everything there. Let's see if I can there we go, get the screen back. So again, some context. You're operating in a very difficult environment. And the goal here is, how do we, like some of the companies that we're going to talk about in a second, how do we ramp up, improve, and be braced for the cyclical market? Of course, this market will return, but I think it's going to be, it's going to return to be a better market, a more robust market. But it could be 5, it could be up to 10 years, depending on where you are and what type of work you do, what type of clients you use. So that could be tough. That could be tough. So rather than waiting for the market, we are coaching our clients that you need to make some critical changes. And so this week I was with a company doing a deep dive, digging into their systems and their processes, their people, their training, how they manage work, how they got work, their structure, was it appropriate, some of their systems that they use to execute that work. And so kind of give them a fresh look and a benchmark against the best practices in the industry. What are our other clients doing around the country that are improving their businesses? And so again, a couple hit top of the list things that you're gonna hear about is discipline, the art of executing well. And the art of executing is critical. It is a great idea, and it's a low-risk strategy to figure out how to make sure you are executing as well as possible. If you could execute, I lost my panel. Let's see if let me just make sure we're still alive here on the call. There we go. All right. Let me get back to that. Somehow I lost the screen. Let me know I'm still. There we go. So I was worried there. I thought I was offline. I'm sorry. So that's why I need an IT department to help me out. Executing work very well is a low-risk strategy. And so you can invest a bunch of money in this market to grow a new division in another city. That's high risk. I knew a company that said we're going to invest $1 million to open up an office in Kuwait. And I said, is there anything we could do locally with a lot less risk? I mean, if I took that $1 million, could I invest it in what we're doing, like in software to make us more efficient, in training to make us better, in a sales effort? I mean, is that really the strategy that we want to go after, is doing work in Kuwait? That's a high-risk strategy. Honing and sharpening your operational tools is a low-risk strategy with a high payoff. It's not uncommon for us. In other words, it's very common. In fact, I can guarantee, working with a labor-intensive company, I'll get you 10% savings. And that goes to the bottom line. Your direct cost labor savings, 10%, that'll go to your bottom line, and it's really low risk. A focus, an intense focus, a maniacal focus on customers, and that's very different from that hard bid strategy. An investment in your people. How do we create strategic thinkers? And I don't just mean the strategic planning session once a quarter, but create strategic thinkers. And then technology. And you'll see a couple examples of companies that have invested in technology and did it in such a way that they got great benefit from it. So I'll leave this up for a second. Companies, some general contractors, some specialty contractors, again, some and some of the areas that they're each in. And so I'll take a couple minutes to go through each one of these. Like I said, these are case studies. I mean, so we could spend a whole lot of time. So Sun Country Builders is a general contractor. They do a whole lot of self-perform of the work they build. They're probably about a $20 million, $15 to $20 million general contractor in California. They started out in affordable housing, the new construction. Again, you could think that in California was a great market. And sure enough, it was very negotiated. And sure enough, it switched overnight to a hard bid market. I think many of you might have found yourselves in the same shoes. You're sitting now facing a hard bid market. Some of the strengths they had, some of the research they did internally, some of the soul searching they did as a leadership team, and this wasn't just the CEO sitting in a chair at his desk, but the leadership team really thinking hard, is that they were, we found, is incredible estimating skills, which isn't something you typically get from a general contractor. I'm not picking on them, but some of these subcontractors realize a lot of times the general contractors are just getting bids from subs, and that's how they know their project costs. These guys did a whole lot more than that, and so they had excellent estimating skills. They also found, by creating some awareness across the company, that some of their self-performed trades, i.e. their concrete and mason guys, also did taping and texture and drywall on weekends for other companies, for other work. And so now they had these multi-skilled trades. So they expanded from just doing concrete and masonry work to now self-performing a lot more, which really gave them a leg up. Their administrative record keeping and some of the softwares they used to do that were top-notch, very sharp, very efficient. Their clear processes, their accurate estimates kind of gave them the edge at completing projects. They had great, very strong supervision. They had a team that had been together for a while, and so they had very strong supervision and great relationships with subcontractors. Those multi-skilled employees allowed them to execute well, control their quality, and control their schedule. So that reputation and relationships they had, that helped them get into doing this negotiated work. And so they got into renovations. And so they do a whole lot of renovation work now. What they're critical, and I think a good highlight for this company is that when they sell the job up front, even in hard bid, they say, hey, what is it that we will have to do to make you happy on this project? I mean, what is that one thing? And so then they kind of create a job-specific mission statement for that client. So that project team goes in and their pre-job planning and their prep for the project. They have a job-specific mission statement, which is pretty unique, that lets their builders, their skilled laborers know what the purpose is behind that project. You know, we're not just throwing bricks down, we're building a hospital for sick children. We're making sure we're hitting the customer's value. Not just our value, but we're addressing what that customer wants before we're finished. So that's one company. The next is Hume. Some of you may know Hume from the Midwest. They're an electrical contractor, probably around $75 million in revenue. They do very complex hospital work, very complex hospital projects. They focus in that Midwest market, and as their recession started to hit, some of their clients said, hey, would you hobble us to a remote area to do a project, or some of the VA hospitals that might be in remote areas. And so they said, yep. And so they tried it a little bit and realized there was quite a market for them. And they were asked more often and more often. Well, the company didn't have the systems. That's what we talked about earlier, one of the areas that I look at. The company's systems didn't support that strategy, doing remotely, geographically dispersed work. And so if they didn't make any other changes, they would have had some profit loss, because their systems did not support doing remote work and doing a lot of putting project teams far away from the main office. And so what they kind of realized was, after some adaptation, some internal study, some internal work, they realized they could fit, and this is a neat generational study We do a lot of education on the difference in generations in our industry, that they could fit empty nesters, baby boomers, with Generation Y youngsters right out of grad school. And right out of school, right out of trade schools. And so sure enough, that pairing worked real well, and they were happy to travel. That team was happy to travel. A newer PM and a baby boomer that was an expert in the trade. And so you pair those two up together, that seasoned PM with another individual, maybe a younger individual. They kind of got to that with trial and error, but they found that pairing to be very effective. They did a whole lot of investments in technology. BIM and the software and systems to be able to manage projects remotely, to gather project data and cost data, and to share it remotely. Some of that remote login type of information that allowed their project teams to run projects remotely while keeping the same systems. They didn't want it to look like a whole other company. It's a repeatability concept. I did a discussion with a group in Seattle, and they said, I'd asked them, what's the difference between a startup and an established, successful company? And you know, the discussion kind of centered around, you know, if every project that we take on, we've got to reinvent our systems, and it looks different, and it's a new adventure for every project, something's probably wrong. We're too similar to a startup. And so sure enough, we're going to be competing against them. But if we've got repeatability in our systems, and I don't mean make everyone a robot, but if we've got repeatability, we can manage that, and we can make sure our customers see the value in our work. Hume, because of the remote projects, they're they're diligent about watching costs on projects. And that's critical. They've got incredible processes and systems. They had to create those to be able to do that travel work. This discipline management of electrical construction. They're very, very wary of their costs and their cost management and project controls. And so while those are important, they're even more important when you've got remote teams and we've got to manage them remotely. Consigwi's a large general contractor in the Northeast. They were about $300 million in revenue during the downturn, and because of some steps they took, they're over $650 million today, and it's very profitable work. They're a very profitable company. They're a third or fourth generation family-run business. They, just like everybody else, went from private work when the downturn hit to, of course, state and municipal or public work. And so sure enough, they went from close relationship work, just like a lot of other people, to this hard bid market where there are 15 and 20 bidders on each project. And hopefully none of you are facing anything that grim. What they did was, in order to learn that quickly, Consigli took a little slice of humble pie and they joint ventured. So they joint ventured with companies that were excellent at doing those hard bid jobs. A JV, which exposed them to a little risk, it minimized the risk, and it got them opportunity to see what other companies were doing, what other experts were doing. And so they had to step up quite a bit to partner with some bigger companies, but they went to school. They saw it as an education. They also, during the downturn, they noticed a lot of folks they knew in town, a lot of the folks they knew around them that they were aware of and kept in touch with, were kind of looking for work. And so they hired star talent. They invested heavily in hiring top players. They then kind of said, listen, our IT systems, we think we're a top-notch national general contractor. And in order to do that, we need to have top-notch national general contractor IT systems. And so they invested very heavily in technology because they said, if we're going to keep this growth trend, we need to, if we have the best systems in the industry, we will be better than any other company out there because we know our people are great and the way we build is incredible. And so we need to catch up on the systems that we use. And so they invested very heavily in themselves. That's tough. As many of you know during the downturn, that's very tough to do. It's a little bit risky, but they felt strongly that with the right steps, they were going to do it. They also had this massive push that everybody is a BDer, is one way to look at it. Everybody in the company is in business development. So they sensitized everybody to, hey, help each other out by getting work. It was an all-hands effort to find new relationships, to figure out who needs what, to be able to sell the company on its value. And in other words, although we've got a business development staff, they can coordinate, they can manage what the company does. Business development happens through everybody. The folks on your soccer team, the folks that you're in association meetings with. And that approach took a bunch of training. There's a company right out, just adjacent to our industry called Brickman. Brickman went through a big downturn in the 80s, and they said, you know what, we're not going to lay anybody off, but everybody's now in sales. And so they went through a massive sales train-up, and they launched that new sales force out on the market. And today they're national. I think they're in 48 states as a result. They went from 3, and then after that change in philosophy, it's got to be done right, as many of you know. I mean, there's a huge risk in grabbing our best superintendent and telling them they're now a salesperson, and it could be some funny interactions. But done right, just like a construction project, trained and managed the right way, it led to great success. One of the things Consigli did some soul searching, and you'll hear that, I think the second or third time I've said that, to kind of figure out who they were and how their services were delivered. And so, you know, they really beat themselves up to make sure they were getting work and that the team was on board and they were as efficient as possible at getting and keeping those relationships. Well, I would say about Consigli, I pause for a second, but one of the company leaders, if you go back to Good to Great, Jim Collins' book, I would say they're level 4, level 5 leaders. In company pictures, they're the ones in the back, or maybe they're not in it. It is always about their employees and the successes. Success stories, it's because of employees. Failures, the leaders take responsibility. And so it's the very smart, humble family leaders, most of us would say good folks, but they're shrewd when it comes to thinking about the future of the business. And that's kind of what they did. I don't know that not many companies, and FMI included, were able to predict the downturn. I mean, maybe we all felt it, and in hindsight, we're kind of like we're smart and we predicted it. And so I didn't see many contractors do that. We all got kind of caught up in the excitement and the momentum of a lot of work out there. But once it did happen, Consigli acted, and they acted quickly. And they made some of the right steps. They made some of the right moves. Some of you may know Baker. Baker Triangle, $85 million plaster drywall contractor in Texas. They hit this downturn and again, did some deep dive, soul searching, looking to figure out, with some help I think, to figure out, hey, how do our general contractors pursue work? Who within the general contractor is making that purchasing decision? What do those people perceive as value? And then how can we communicate that with those folks? How do we get in front of those folks, and how do we communicate that message, our value, to match their need with those folks? And so at a certain point, I know a drywall contractor in Texas bidding on a border patrol project. It was a building. There were 70 bidders for that scope. 70 other bidders. I mean, when the downturn hit, drywall, of course, kind of went from a drywall went to hard bid, and that's tough. I mean, it is seen often as a commodity. And so the leaders at Baker said, hey, we've got to do something different. We've got to figure this out. They realized that we want to go way upstream with our customers. So a true initiative around getting in front of our customers and getting to know our customers. Face-to-face meetings with their customers way before price is on the table. And so you'll hear maybe a quote a little later. If we're trying to compete on bid day with price, it's too late. I mean, we missed it. We needed to figure out what the value was months before that, which kind of meant we need to know the project's coming up. And so you'll hear a lot of success stories today from companies that have that business development effort to go way upstream. If you think DPR, large general contractor, very successful, very much a zippered business development approach. And so again, we're getting many people involved. We've got my superintendent in their project manager's hip pocket, understanding what their project manager wants, understanding when the next project is coming due. We've got my estimator talking to their estimator, creating that relationship. We got my sales guy talking to one of their directors, understanding that. So we want a pairing at many different levels across the organization. And then maybe we got the owner or the president talking to somebody over there at the company. That became very important for them to bring back and then have a strategy session, a working session about how do we go after this project. What's different about most companies is we're focused on bid, bid, bid. In fact, in a lot of cases, we've gone from being construction contractors to construction bidders. We're not building much, we're just bidding massive amounts of work. Hit rates went from about 20% to probably 8 or sometimes 5 for a drywall contractor based off revenue. And so that's crazy. I mean, you got to figure out a way to have differentiate yourself. And honestly, as many of you know, on time, on schedule, won't differentiate you anymore in this market. That's expected. That's expected. Some of the things they did, make the client's decision emotional. If they had a successful project in the past with a superintendent, they'll say, hey, do you remember Butch? He was your superintendent on that last project. That went great. You know what? We're going to put Butch in this project again. He's a great guy. And then somehow they get Butch in and around maybe the proposal, the presentation, or make some office call. And so, or get them out on their project site before they're out there before bid day. It's pretty neat. They also did some very, very heavy investments in innovative technologies and prefab. And so building information, modeling, robotic layout of projects, using thumbprints and time cards for labor time, or getting rid of the time cards, using thumbprints instead. There's a whole lot of technology that can reduce overhead and make life easier, so we don't have to double and triple enter information. This is a neat quote. They believed we're better off taking construction out of the daylight. I know a large electrical contractor in the Northeast that believed in this around the D.C. Mid-Atlantic, I guess. Prefab, everything you can. If we do it out of the daylight in a warehouse or in a shop, we will save so much more labor just bringing it out to the project and setting it in place, rather than trying to assemble, pull wire and assemble ductwork on site. It's so much easier to prefab it and then just ship it out and plop it on site. And so they spent a lot of time and energy investing in that, and it gave them a whole lot of returns. See, their thought is we've got to think differently, and we've got to coach. I'm sorry, there we go, Baker Triangle. We've got to coach our employees to think differently about this market. And so you know what I've liked about the Baker Triangle case is they realized early on that it's no longer just a leader writing a memorandum telling people what they're going to do. It's a leader trying to change the behavior, and they acknowledge early on that we've got to change the behavior of what our employees and our leaders do. So our field foremen have to embrace robotic layout and labor time. And as many of you know, that's a challenge. We've got to embrace using the new software. And so I would give them credit for understanding how to internally sell these changes and how it would save the company. Because it's paid off in spades for Baker. Skander Construction is a general contractor, around $30 million in Chicago. They are, I would say, experts in creating strategic thinkers within their company. And so again, this is not strategic planning. They believe and have done strategic planning for a while. And strategic planning invited and it involved many of their managers, division managers, and some of their high potential bench strength. With that level of involvement, they were able to help them understand the market. So if you think of the blind man and the elephant, you see 12 blind men feeling around an elephant trying to figure out what it is they're looking at. You know, one thinks it's a tree trunk. One thinks it's, whatever, a wall. But they don't understand what they're looking at. And that's often what we find with construction companies. The foreman is seeing something in the field. The estimator is seeing something. The project manager is hearing something. Your sales guy or leader of the company is hearing something. And so often we got to bring them back and share some of that knowledge and get people to understand the context that that project, that customer that they are in as a company, to be able to take advantage of those things. So that's tough. I mean, this is not construction of pre-2007. To win work and to get that strategic advantage, this is now required. And some of this has changed. Some of this has changed for us as leaders. A very strong emphasis on strategic planning and following up on those actions. And so, that's a lot of the value we'll bring, is that we're not just going to talk about it in the room, make a bunch of plans, and then forget about it for another year until we meet again for the next strategic planning session. I'm intent on making sure we're following up and helping you get over those obstacles. We said these are important to the business. Well, let's follow through on them. And whose job is it, and when are we going to have it done? And so that's some of the value FMI brings to clients. Some of the things Scanner does, again, researching and seeking the best players in the market to bring on board, offering attractive compensation, and then an opportunity to take real ownership of their work. And so their systems allow them to do that. They had strong systems and processes. I call it the Skender way. How does Skender build projects that makes them different? What is it that their customers feel differently? And so then how do their best practices get them there? Create that differentiation in the market. And so that takes some best practices. This is there's so much chaos, as many of you know, so much chaos on projects and so many changes and so many last-minute changes and time constraints that we need to have best practices. We need to set our field up for success, our project managers up for success before they encounter all that chaos. And then they're better equipped to deal with the chaos. And typically your margins will show. They are focused on lean, removing the waste in how they conduct projects or build projects. It is subcontractors for them. It's not about lowest bid for those subcontractors, even in this market. It's about who can participate, who can be part of that team, and who's going to ensure that project's built right. And so who's embracing that lean and waste reduction process. And they tell their employees, hey, it's your project, here's the expectation, here's the guardrails, here's how we follow through on it, and here's how it falls on paper, here's the process to build it. But now we want you to take the authority to make it successful. And so they've seen great gains with that. This new approach really talks about their lean, a lot of design build, and then they're trying hard to change the philosophy of accepted waste within construction in their projects with their owners. And so it's neat, they're going upstream to owners and saying, hey, listen, if we approach it this way, here's how much money you can save, here's how much money we'll save, and you'll have a better project. And they're getting subcontractors that can think that way too. So they're starting to, as you might call it, design build, and then even take one step further, not a legal, but an IPD, integrated project delivery approach. Flatiron, some of you may know Flatiron. They're a subsidiary of Hochtief, Turner Construction's sister company. I think I went one too far. There we go. Flatiron is a heavy civil contractor. They started out in the California market, really doing public hard bid projects before the recession. Great company by all means. They then kind of realized, and this is through strategy, they realized, hey, we need to have some diversification if this California market, and many of you, some of you are in California in the audience, but many of you read in the paper California and their budget, their local budget, like many states, but California kind of hit that a little earlier than many. And so Flatiron said, hey, we need to be aware of some diversification geographically. And so they did some market research. Our folks, just like our market research group, did a market research and figured out that the Canadian infrastructure market was great, and there was money to be spent to repair it. And so they looked at strategic acquisitions. They made some acquisitions to get and enter that market, and became fluent in public-private partnerships. So how do we find other financing to bring to the table to help satisfy that municipality's need? And that's P3. And in the Canada market, that public-private financing or public-private partnership is possible, a design-build project. What Flatiron also did was partnered with some big players, like the Parsons, Brinkerhoff, Graham, Hewitts, to use complementary capabilities, but again, to learn, to scale up to bigger projects. Tough. It's like playing a tennis match with an expert in tennis, an Olympic champion in tennis. It would be a risk, and I'd probably pay for it in sweat and pain the next day. But I certainly would be a better player. I've learned a whole lot. And so that's kind of the approach Flatiron took. And this was, like I said, a great market, great company to start with. Some more strategic planning, they realized that the New York City market, a whole lot of infrastructure and a whole lot of need for improvement. And so they kind of figured out we want to penetrate that New York City market. And some of you may know, reading the paper or whatever, we helped them acquire E.E. Cruz, which is a great local New York City contractor. So really geographic strategy for them, looking at a diversity in different markets. Diversification is important, but they did it the right way. They approached each one of them for the right reasons. They didn't just jump into new markets. All right, so I'm going to give you a second. I like to think about, what if I were to do a case study in your company? What would we call you? Each one of these companies, I think we called Flatiron was a strategist. I think we called Skender the systems thinker, because that's kind of how they approach things. Baker Triangle is the innovator, innovative ways and technologies to bring to drywall. What would your name be? Would you be the firefighters? And that's what we see a lot of companies doing today. They're stuck in the day-to-day firefighting whirlwind, and they have a hard time breaking the mold to change the company and set it up for success in the future. It's set you up for success in today's market, but we want to get you successful before that market returns, and have you well positioned. There's many companies out there today that we're working with that are going to be very well positioned today and in the future. And we expect them to be very profitable in the future. Companies that are just sitting and waiting for the market to return may not have that same improvement or advantage. And so how have you created an organization that's adaptable? I would argue that November 2012 election, which no matter which way it goes, I'm not trying to be political here, but no matter which way it goes, there are implications for us as companies, and that may change the context. And so we need to be thinking through what changes and how those markets may change, and have some contingency plans. I was in the military as an officer, blessed to have some great folks work around me, and contingency planning was a way of thinking. And I would argue with you that our military is incredibly successful because we did that. We create strategic thinkers down to our NCO level, down to our non-commissioned officer, small unit leader, corporal level. In fact, back in years back, General Krulak, Marine Corps Commandant, penned a paper called The Strategic Corporal. The corporal being the lowest rank of legal military leader. And he called it the Strategic Corporal. And that was, I think, 1991. He wrote the paper, and it was about how do we shape our youngsters to be strategic thinkers. Same kind of thing that we're doing here in construction, and it's necessary for success. I see many of what I do running around the field with your foremen and your superintendents to talk to them, to understand what they're seeing and facing. Much of what I do is understanding their context and getting their great ideas, pulling it all together, and then helping you come up with a plan for the future of the company. There's a whole lot of information. I call it information overload. And I'm thrilled that you're on this webinar, and I hope you get up a big list of ideas coming out of this webinar. But then tomorrow you'll get the newspaper and you'll get some more ideas, and then the next day you'll get the Construction Executive magazine and you'll get some more ideas, and you know, there's a whole lot of information about the market. I try to read the Wall Street Journal each day. Is the market improving? The stock market, if you try to follow it, would drive any one of us bad. It's pretty inconsistent, and it's tough to project which way it's going. This Generation Y is going to be critical to the future of your business. I have seen some phenomenal leaders in our next generation, and so some companies are adapting to it. It is critical. I know some companies that have figured out how to attract, retain, and get the maximum value out of this next generation, and it's been very helpful. We're going to lose a lot of baby boomers in the next 10 years. They may retire. I don't know, baby boomers like working, and so maybe they won't ever retire. That's what it seems like for some. But this Generation Y we're going to need to turn to them to help fill our ranks and create strength in the organization. So a lot of these companies invested in people. Is your company operational excellent? If it's not, get it there. And like I said, that's a low-risk strategy. I make a joke here about this. You're probably not different in the market if all you're telling me is great customer service, we're on time, and we're on budget. I saw that on time, on budget contractor of choice on a project signboard. It said XYZ Construction, the on time, on budget contractor of choice. And so that's a great title, I guess, but it's not going to win you more work. If you're a subcontractor, a general contractor is not going to choose to do work with you just for that. Maybe if you're in Guam, but not in this market. And so, and then how well are you at managing getting work? Some overall thoughts. We've covered some of these. Get in the heads of your clients early. I have a quote here. Let's see if there it is. So the Baker Triangle president. That is not his picture. I'll give you a second to read that. Here's what I like. Instead of telling clients what we think is valuable, we let them define what's valuable to them. And so we get there with coaching. I mean, I've got business development experts that help folks change their mentality and change how they get work. And that's a shift. Some would say it's a paradigm shift. I was at the Association of Subcontractors out in California about 3 months ago, and they had a general contractor in the room. I thought it was pretty neat. They had a general contractor in the room, and we were talking about this, and I asked questions at the end, and they said, Jim, it's hard bid, it's all about price. And this general contractor raised his hand. He was a project executive. He raised his hand, and he said, hey, Jim, can I say something? I said, yeah. He said, listen, I'm in town, and I got the biggest hospital project in town. We've got another project we'll be starting soon. He said, when I see subs, to include some of the folks in this room, they say, hey, we'll be lowest bid. Let's get a chance to bid on your project. We'll be lowest bid. He said, I don't want lowest bid. He said, what I want is a subcontractor that can work with the other subcontractors, that can work well and efficiently. He said, that's what we're looking for. We need folks, since it's complex project, complex customer, we need folks that work together and make adjustments as we go and that we're comfortable and enjoy working with. He said, I'd rather that than lowest bid. He said, so if you want to work with me, the way to do it is go find one of my subs, the drywaller, one of the adjacent subcontractors, not the guy you compete with, but the adjacent subcontractor that you're a friend with, and have him come and give me a referral for you. I'd be happy to talk to you then. But if you just come talk to me about price, he said, I'm turned off. I'm not that interested in working with contractors like that. So that's not indicative of the whole market. I'm certainly aware of that. Price is important. But what I think Michael Vickery's talked about here is, hey, get inside your customer's head and understand what's valuable to them. Avoid talking about price where you can in that conversation. This is a price-driven market, but there we go. But it's important to look for that value because they've got it. As a general contractor, I've been in that role and I've worked with a lot of general contractors, got some big ones today that I work with. They've got a range, and so they're willing to pay more for the right values, even in this tough market. Even the hard-bid general contractor that I work with, they're willing to pay more for the right things. Let me make sure I got the right slide here. There we go. So find out what makes you different, what makes you unique. And think about Sun Country Builders. They realized that they had experts in their field. They realized that they were incredible, best, and improved their estimating skills. They realized that their processes, again, it was a lot of technology based at the time, but their process for capturing invoices and getting payment were very efficient. And so it led them to a certain type of work. And so that's kind of what we've got to figure out. Continue to develop those strengths and figure out which type of project you're best suited for. So I'm working with a contractor today. I was with them earlier this week. They continue to bid on $10,000 projects, and they continue to say that their overhead is too high. And it's the truth. And so they continue to win some of those $10,000 projects because they're cutting their overhead margin. And some of their estimators are frustrated that, we just got to keep cutting costs. And the truth of the matter is they're a sizable company. They can very effectively bid and build and win $5 million jobs. They're a very, very financially capable firm. And so there's no need for them, it doesn't make sense for them competing against other contractors that build $10,000 jobs. And so this is kind of some of the findings. During the downturn, we got bid crazy, and we bid anything and everything that walked in the door. I don't know about you, but I've heard, CEOs driving into work, seeing a project sign, and yelling at their folks to go bid on that project. Reading the paper and saying, let's go bid this project. And a lot of it wasn't a strategic fit. I'll talk very quickly about diversification. Diversification is risky. You got to be careful when you do it. You got to do it right. I like to think about adjacent markets or adjacent services rather than jump right into just say we're going to open a new shop. There's a lot of ways to do this, and we've got a lot of experience doing that. What we do like to say is, hey, working on your existing toolbox on how you execute work isn't as cool or sexy, but it sure is a whole lot more return on your investment, and it's a lot less risky. Nimble and flexible, that's that adaptation, but be disciplined. Many of you know that. I think many of you are there. But that's something that often a second look by an outsider, a lot of what we do is almost like a doctor's physical. I could go to a doctor today, and I know he's going to tell me, Jim, you're overweight, but I don't know what the results of the blood test are going to be. And so he might find some stuff that, he might say my cholesterol's high. It probably is the way I eat. He might say, hey, Jim, you need to cut back on whatever. And so that's something that I need a doctor to tell me. Same kind of thing when it comes to running your business. Sometimes it really helps get you to the next level to have an outside perspective. What I want to hit on this slide is you've got to, as contractors, know your true cost to build work. And it's folks that don't know their true cost to build work that are really getting hurt in this market. They're lifting their fingers, sticking it in the air, and kind of saying, "Yep, we're going to bid that $45 an hour blended rate," and they're getting burned, or they just don't think they can be competitive. If you found yourself saying, "There's absolutely no way that other company is bidding work, and they're just buying the work, and they're bidding at a loss," if you find yourself feeling that way and saying that over and over, it's possible that company knows its true cost, has figured it out, and has created efficiencies. And so your overhead is not their overhead. How you've structured the company and how you win work and estimate work, they may have experts in estimating that understand and capture their historical costs. And so that's something we're seeing many companies come out of the downturn with, is knowing their true cost to do business and then improving on that. The diligence in watching costs on their projects and developing the systems. And if you look at this, Hume's a great company, but it took them years to develop that. These things don't come quickly. To develop them and get folks to use them takes time. Contingency plans. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I talked about November 2012 and contingencies. Creating that strategic thinker, having your folks looking ahead, getting folks to ask questions, getting folks to think about what we might be faced with. I'm telling you, your foremen are more scouts out about your customer than most, and getting them to kind of share, and then helping them understand what they're seeing and what the company's doing about it is very insightful. And so we've got a different, the hard-edged, hard-nosed contractor, the World War II generation, if you will, salute, and here's the mission, just go do it. That doesn't fit as well with this strategic thinking model. And so it's a change for many companies, but it sure does make many companies more effective. How do we bounce ideas off of our existing strategy to make sure it's the right way? How do we test it? That's what we call a wind tunnel. How do we kind of look at strategic consequences of our actions and our decisions and say, what if the market returns next year? If you're a home builder or developer, what if the market returns right away and quickly after November of 2011 or 2012? I'm not saying it would, but what are the steps and decisions we need to make? I worked with a company right before the downturn. They had some foresight. The board of directors, they're a manufacturer of construction goods. And so they had some foresight and said, hey, we want to make sure we're prepared. This market may continue to boom or it may bust. And so we want to look at contingency. So we developed 4 contingency plans and helped them think through the decisions and the course of action for each. And I'll tell you what, none of those courses of action, the goal isn't trying to pick the right course of action, but it's trying to get the leadership team thinking strategically, thinking about those possibilities. It takes some time, but it's well worth it, and it certainly helped and saved that company. I'll hit 2 bullets on this slide. We talked about the consignee family. Many companies that manufacture was smart to project the future, but I've maybe seen 1% of companies that were that good. Give me a call if you're up there on that list. I'd love to hear about it. I know personally I was not, but Consigli and Baker and others acted. They acted. As leadership, it's tough in this market to have a plan and to move forward. It's very tough because we're in a volatile and uncertain market. It's hard to tell and it's hard to say invest money. I'm happy to help you think that through. I'm happy to be that decision frame of reference to help you think through those right decisions and help you make and take the right actions. And then, listen, if you find yourself battling it out in this hard-hit environment and you've got no competitive edge, you've probably lost your passion for the business. And you used to say it's no fun anymore. Listen, you need that competitive edge. You need to figure out how to get it back and how to get out in front of your competition. And so I would suggest to you, you haven't taken the right steps if you find yourself battling this bloody, hard-bid market with no competitive edge. You could be a hard-bid contractor, but we need that strategy. And so you need to be a low-cost provider. That's a great strategy we've helped many companies with, and that becomes a competitive edge. But that's a tough one. It's not just trying to get lowest cost, and with all the adaptations in the market, the external context around us that's changed, with all of those changes, if all you've changed is your price on bid day, you're not going to have a competitive edge, and it's going to be a miserable market. You're taking the fun out of construction. And so there's many, many, many winning folks that are still enjoying construction today. Hey, it's our job as leaders to confront these tough issues. I mean, this is what I would call leader work. It's leader business to confront this tough stuff. It is hard, and that's why a lot of folks will give us a call to help them think it through. And I like the way we phrase this research group through this one in here. Many times it's easier to blame the market and say, well, it's just the market, it's just the market. Whereas there's many times it's really the company's behavior that's causing the problems. There are companies today, and we want to use the case studies, but I know many more that I work with that are very profitable in this market. And the folks in this case study have improved their revenue and their profit margin. And they operate in a lot of the same markets that you do. And so I like you to all challenge yourselves. If you're kind of saying it's the market, kind of look back at what is our company doing that might be the wrong things. If you're finding yourself firefighting as the leader of business, it's going to be hard to get you out of this, and it's going to be hard for your company to be one of those case studies. So I challenge you to kind of get yourself at a minimum out of that reactive mode. Because when you as the leader, the CEO, the general manager are in reactive mode, that lead by example, all your folks are going to be that way too. And so a lot of times that strategic planning, the business evaluation, that gives us an opportunity to stop and think about what we need to be and how we need to change for the future, and then be proactive and shape our own destiny in the future. That whirlwind's vicious, and many of you know it, and you're caught in it. I think that's the nature of our industry, that day-to-day vortex, that whirlwind that gets us caught up in, from before we get to work, emails, till after we get home, emails, projects going right and wrong, customer demands, trying to do crazy things and be reactive. That's tough. And so as leaders, we got to pull our folks, we got to get the company to figure out where is the ship heading, and that's our job. Hey, this is another business cycle. The market is going to improve, and it's our actions today that are going to get us there. None of these companies changed overnight. software implementation could take time to get right and make sure our folks use. I'm not sure, Alliance Solutions Group's probably got some thoughts. I mean, that takes time to get there. And so just like a lot of these strategic changes, market changes, we can't train people and expect their behavior change the next day. So now's the time to start acting. Let's get going on this stuff so that as the market continues to recover, we can take advantage of it and position ourselves more market share and more profit. The companies that we exhibited, it's kind of neat. I feel like none of them are, that's not proprietary information, because we did that research 6 to 8 months ago. 6 to 8 months ago, we did the research and published this. They have probably all adapted much further to a new level since then. They've rebuilt, retooled, refitted, and they're ready for the new game. It is truly a new ball game we're playing today. It's truly a new ball game. It's not the same game we've played for 40, 50 years in the past. And so we've got to get our companies ready for that. Listen, I'd love to help you get started with that stuff. My contact info, if I get the slide flipping thing right, my contact info, my email address is jshug@fminet.com. I'll have the slides out there. You could also get me a call at 813-636-1254 or 1364. And I'd love to talk you through it. And so I'm passionate about our industry and love helping contractors succeed in it. Well, listen, hey, I enjoyed the discussion. I love to get on the phone and discuss more with you. I feel it was really one-way conversation. Give me a holler, and I'd love to hear from you. All of you have a great and safe Memorial Day weekend. Hey, Tim?
Yes. Yep. No, thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it. And everybody, I've attempted to record this event, and I will be sending out a link out to everybody in case there were some audio issues or anything like that. You should be able to hear it on the video. So.